iOS 11 is available, officially, today. It's coming to every iPhone and iPad made in the past few years, and chances are, you're going to upgrade. When you install it on your iPhone, you'll find that some things are very different than what you're used to, but the core of how you get around and experience the OS will be the same. For example, the control center is wildly different and notifications have changed slightly, but you still have that comfortable and comforting grid of apps on the home screen. A lot is new, but not so much that you can't recognize it. The iPad is a different story. That's where Apple has made the most radical changes to the way you open and manage your apps. Apple has introduced an app dock that's available no matter what you're doing with a quick swipe up, so you can get to your most important apps quicker. It's also changed the way that multitasking works, giving you more flexibility with split-screen apps. And you can now drag and drop content between apps, a feature that takes some finger jiu-jitsu, but is remarkably powerful once you get used to it. We covered all the big features, especially on the iPad, in our iOS 11 preview last June, so I'm not going to dive too deeply into the nitty-gritty of how every feature works here. Since those earlier betas, not a ton has changed, and let's face it, you're going to upgrade. Apple is the best at pushing these software updates out, and they almost always go off without a hitch. This year, more than others, you'll be getting features that will make you want to upgrade. Here are 10 things you should definitely go play around with after you upgrade, along with some opinions about each of them. First thing you're going to want to dig into on iOS 11 is the all-new Control Center. It's completely redesigned so that it sits on a single screen instead of on 2 or 3 swiping panels. It's a little weird at first, with a wacky array of buttons and widgets. Some of them are simple button toggles, others are panels that you can force touch to expand for even more options. Force touching the flashlight brings up a slider that lets you change its intensity. Force touching the networking panel brings up all your wireless radios and, praise be, a button to toggle your hotspot. One nice note, if you turn on airplane mode and then turn Bluetooth on again, that toggle sticks. So the next time you turn on airplane mode, your Bluetooth headphones won't disconnect. Nice. For the first time, Apple is providing a settings pane where you can customize which buttons do and don't appear in Control Center, and you can reorder them as well. Apple is still not letting third-party developers put anything in here, but maybe next year it will. In the meantime, there are a few panels that I'm really impressed with. There's quick access to the Apple TV remote. If you have Control Center turned on for your lock screen, it might actually be more convenient than the real remote. I also think that the screen recording feature is super neat. It records a quick movie of whatever you're doing on screen. It seems like a feature custom designed for reviewers and tech support, but it actually lets you do clever things like record gameplay or quickly grab a video clip. I'm still mystified as to why Apple doesn't put quick access to a Wi-Fi network selection screen somewhere in there, though. You still have to hunt through settings to change your Wi-Fi network or select a new one. I am glad to see that it's easier to switch Bluetooth devices directly in Control Center, but I find the location, under the music widget, a little unintuitive. Apple wasn't eager to provide more details on how exactly iOS 11 changes on the iPhone X, but we do know quite a bit based on our hands-on with the device last week. There's no home button. Instead, you swipe up to go home. A half swipe will bring up multitasking. To get to the Control Center, you swipe down from the upper right. Swiping down from anywhere else brings up notifications. With the home button gone, you unlock the phone with your face. Double tap the side button to activate Apple Pay, then authenticate with your face before you tap the payment reader. Long press that same button to activate Siri. More than anything, though, people are curious to see how the notch that cuts into the top of the screen will affect things. Many designers have expressed skepticism, to say the least, about this design decision. I won't render judgment until things shake out, Except to say this, I've been using Android phones for years with a silly array of screen sizes, aspect ratios, extra displays, and, most recently, screen cutouts. And you know what? It's fine. I expect that once we use the iPhone X, we'll find that the notch gives us more, in terms of more screen space in portrait mode, than it takes away, in terms of weird cutouts in landscape. Apple and I have a very serious disagreement about notifications. I want them to be a place where I can quickly triage a ton of things. I want to get an overview of my day and take action on the stuff I care about while swiping away the stuff I don't. I like to manage my notifications, and once they're properly curated, I get a ton of utility out of a notification pane. I can see what emails matter, I can respond to texts directly, I can dismiss stuff I don't care about. I basically don't even need the home screen. Except doing all of that on iOS 11 feels like wading through chest-high mud. Apple's philosophy is that I'm trying way too hard. Notifications are flying in so fast and at such volume that it's not worth trying to live your life in that screen. Instead, you should just let them flow by, pay attention to one or two that you care about, and ignore the rest. If you really care, you can hit a little X button to clear them all out at the end of the day. Apple has made a few concessions to my way of thinking since the first betas of iOS 11 came out. You can swipe away notifications now, and there's also that X button at the very top that you can force press to clear all. But Apple still adamantly refuses to borrow a bunch of the notification innovations Android brought, such as grouping notifications from a single app together and putting higher priority notifications at the top. I also find that managing notification settings requires way too much bouncing around within the Settings app. But the most fascinating thing about notifications on iOS 11 is that the shade you pull down from the top is the same thing as your lock screen. They look and operate exactly the same, down to swipe over to your camera and to your widget screen. It's one fewer conceptual zone to have to think about, and once you get used to it, you'll wonder why it wasn't always that way. Especially with the iPhone X, your phone is basically always going to be unlocked when it's in your hand, so it makes sense that the lock screen and the notification screen are collapsed into one unit. One clever thing that you won't see unless you get an iPhone X, iOS 11 can default to hiding the content of your notifications on the screen, as before. But as soon as it recognizes your face, it will show their contents on your lock screen.